I am the ghost of costumes. Hey everybody, it's Garrick again. So, a while back I got a wonderful gift. It's called the Prop Builders Molding and Casting Handbook by Thurston James. It's a fantastic book. It's also a book that I've lent out to a friend, so I don't have it here to show you, but I'm sure I can put a link somewhere in here so you can go over and find it on Amazon or whatever. Anyways, this book was written in the early 80s and is definitely more geared for theatrical prop making. But it does have a lot of tips and tricks on using hardware store materials and creative ways to stretch your dollars further while molding and casting. One of the techniques that I use often that I read in there is embedding spandex into your silicone molds. Now, what this does is it works in the same principle as using fiberglass for hard resin shells or epoxy shells or anything like that. You are adding a material to your base to give it more structure. And because you're using a simple four-way stretch spandex, can't be coated on either side, it absorbs into the material and stretches with it. It's a great way to take your very expensive silicone and stretch it and stretch it further. So the silicone that I'm going to be using for this mold, or these sets of molds actually, is the same one that I reviewed earlier in this video. It's the Alumilite High Strength 3. So let's go and do a quick shop video where I do everything in high speed. Now, I have my pieces here that are prepped for molding, and normally we would just do a traditional box mold on this. I have made my masters out of mat board because I have access to a mat cutter through my father-in-law's work. So in order to prep them, and also to prep any kind of wood or paper products for molding, I sealed them all first with a sanding sealer and sanded them. That got rid of the paper texture on it. And then I just used automotive sanding primer on top and some spot filler to get little gouges from the cutting machines and things like that. Alright, well, with the first coat of silicone on, we let it sit overnight so it's gotten tacky. This has a 18-hour full cure, which I didn't give it the whole 18 hours to cure, but it's tacky enough that we should be able to move on to the next step. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a fairly liberal layer on, put the spandex over, and then coat the top of the spandex with the silicone as well, which... Let's cue up fast forward time. So, as you could see, unfortunately, I lost some of my footage for this video. It got deleted in a horrible accident where I accidentally deleted it. So, we're not going to let that ruin this, though. I'm going to keep on moving forward. So you can see that last bit of footage, I was peeling the dividing walls away from all of our molds. And that's because when you do a thin mold like this, you need to have a support shell. Now, the way I worked these ones, because they are a simple, flat-ish mold, is I just poured a plaster shell for them to sit in. So that's my super skinny, very thin, but completely functional mold. I mean, this needs some cleanup from flashing and everything, but hey, it works. Now, to give you an idea of how much silicone that saved, to do the 3 molds that I created here, I used 4 ounces of silicone total. Now, these are very simple molds. They didn't require a lot of detail to be captured, so I could go very thin on them. I also don't need them to last a very long time. I'm only wanting to get a couple of pulls out of each of them. So I don't have to worry about the material deteriorating quicker. One of the ways that more silicone helps a mold last longer is that there's more mass for the heat to transfer into as it cures. So these molds will break down faster. Now when I say faster, that's all relative. You're still going to get a good amount of use out of them. And to kind of put that in perspective, 3 molds, 4 ounces. This is 1 box mold that I did that took, I believe, over 6 ounces to do this single open back mold. So you get a very large return on investment by using the Spandex method. Now, we make a lot of superhero costumes, so we often have spandex just lying around the house. Or I have a discount fabric store called SAS down the street. It's where I buy the burlap that I use with my epoxy. They also just have grab bins of weird cuts of spandex that are dirt cheap. If you're wanting to do this, I would go to a fabric store and look for the ends of bolts, or if they've got a cut bin where you can find the material very inexpensive. Now, to show you a mold that I had done previously that has a little more detail, this is a mold that I did of the back half of one of the toy Tron discs because I needed to produce a few of them for some costumes that we were doing. I didn't need them to be functioning, I just wanted to stick them on the back, and buying a disc for each one of my friends was going to be prohibitively expensive. This is the same thing. It's silicone and the spandex imprinted, although this is a smooth-on silicone. And instead of doing the plaster box, this is a Bondo, or Rondo, actually it's urethane, not urethane, polyester resin and polyester auto body filler mixed together to make a paste and fiberglass shell. And then on the back side, I had placed these registration keys. Now, on something that isn't going to be laying completely flat, you need these to keep the mold seated in your shell properly, otherwise it can shift or warp while you're casting. So if you're going for something a little more complicated, make sure that you produce keys. And the way I make these is, if I have any leftover silicone, I pour it into the bottom of one of my measuring cups and just let it cure in there, and then peel it out and cut it into shapes and use it when I have a finished piece that I need. Now, this one also has much more surface detail, as you can see in here. So I did more than just the first single pass. I actually did 2 passes of silicone before I laid down the spandex, and then I did 2 passes of silicone on afterwards. So this one piece probably has between 4 to 6 ounces of silicone in it. So, but if you think that this open back mold had about the same amount of silicone, and you look at the size difference, I would have had to use quite a lot to do a open back mold of a piece this large. I hope that you guys can try this out. This will save you some money, let you experiment with some molding without spending too much. Or if you have to create a waste mold, sometimes if you need to get a part that you've built to be homogeneous, like you just want it all in resin before you work on it further, you can make what's called a waste mold, which is going to be something that isn't for a finished piece. This is a great way to make one of those because, again, you don't want to spend a ton of money. So I hope you like this video. Watch my previous videos. I cover all sorts of mold making and building techniques and materials. I'm going to be continuing to do more, so please subscribe. You can also follow mine and my wife's work at noonsdesigns.com. You can follow us on Twitter at noonsdesigns or on Facebook at facebook.com/noonsdesigns. So have a good one, and we'll see you later. This has been in the garage. There's a high chance of spiders.